The giant ship Harmony's Edge floated quietly in the dark space between stars. Inside, aliens from 12 different worlds worked together on their mission to explore new parts of the galaxy. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge, his 4 purple eyes watching the computer screens that showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. Veltar was an Xari, tall and thin with blue-gray skin that changed color when he felt strong emotions. He had been exploring space for over 200 years, and he thought he had seen everything the galaxy could show him. Today felt like another boring day of scanning empty space and writing reports that no one would read. The ship's computer suddenly made a soft beeping sound. Unknown vessel detected, it announced in the common language that all the alien species used to talk to each other. Distance, 47,000 kilometers. Species, unknown. Veltar's skin turned a lighter shade of blue, which meant he was curious. In all his years of space travel, finding a completely new species was extremely rare. Most intelligent life in the galaxy had already joined the Galactic Council, or at least made contact with other species. Put it on the main screen, Vel ordered. The large display at the front of the bridge showed a small dot of light in the distance. The ship looked different from anything in the Galactic Council's database. It was smaller than most exploration vessels, with an unusual design that seemed more aggressive than the peaceful ships most species preferred to build. Dr. Cathera, a scientist from the Kalani species, who looked like a large, friendly octopus, moved closer to her instruments. Her tentacles danced over the controls as she gathered information about the mystery ship. "Commander, I'm reading some very strange energy signatures from that vessel. Their technology is completely unknown to us." But before Veltar could respond, the ship's computer made an urgent warning sound that made everyone on the bridge freeze with fear. Stellar collapse detected. Distance, 12 million kilometers. Expansion rate, critical. All vessels must evacuate immediately. Veltar's skin turned dark gray, which meant he was very afraid. He had seen stellar collapses before, and they were one of the most dangerous things in space. When a star system collapsed, it created a massive gravitational storm that could destroy anything within 50 million kilometers. The smart thing to do was run away as fast as possible. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance," Veltar commanded. "Standard emergency protocols. We'll try to contact the unknown vessel from a safe location." The Harmony's Edge began to turn away from the danger, along with the 2 smaller escort ships that traveled with them. But something impossible happened on the viewing screen. The unknown vessel, instead of running away from the deadly stellar collapse, turned toward it and began flying directly into the danger zone. "Commander," Dr. Cathera said, her voice full of confusion, "the unknown vessel is accelerating toward the collapse. They're flying straight into certain death." Every alien on the bridge stared at the screen in shock. In 3 million years of galactic civilization, no intelligent species had ever voluntarily flown toward such obvious destruction. It went against every basic survival instinct that evolution had programmed into every living creature. The communication system crackled with static, and then a voice came through speaking in a language the computer had never heard before. But the translation system worked quickly, and soon they could understand the words. "This is Captain Park of the human vessel, Defiant. Hope, we are detecting multiple life signs trapped in the collapse zone. Beginning immediate rescue operations. Human." Veltar repeated the word slowly. The computer had no record of any species called humans in the entire galactic database. These were completely unknown aliens, and their first action was to fly into deadly danger to save strangers. Dr. Cathara's tentacles moved frantically over her controls. "Commander, I'm detecting a damaged transport ship caught in the gravitational field. The collapse is pulling it apart, but there are definitely life forms still alive inside." On the screen, they watched the small human ship called Defiant Hope dive deeper into the swirling chaos of the stellar collapse. The gravitational forces should have crushed any normal spacecraft. But somehow, the human vessel kept flying closer to the trapped transport ship. "This is impossible," whispered Ambassador Rethek, a representative from the Salvani species whose purple skin was now glowing bright white with amazement. "No rational being would risk their life for unknown aliens. It violates every law of survival psychology we know." The bridge crew watched in silence as the human ship reached the damaged transport vessel. Through the sensors, they could see small rescue pods launching from the Defiant Hope and flying to the transport ship, picking up survivors even as pieces of the transport broke away and disappeared into the gravitational storm. 423 minutes. The humans worked in conditions that should have killed them instantly. They saved every living creature from the transport ship, and then they did something even more impossible. Instead of fleeing to safety, they flew their badly damaged ship back through the collapse zone to make sure no one had been left behind. When the Defiant Hope finally emerged from the stellar collapse, its hull was cracked and glowing red from radiation exposure. But every survivor from the transport ship was safe aboard the human vessel. Veltar stared at the screen, his skin cycling through colors he had never experienced before. In all his centuries of life, he had never seen anything like what these humans had just done. They had risked everything to save complete strangers, and they had succeeded against impossible odds. "Get me a communication channel to that human," Ship Veltar ordered quietly. "I think we need to talk." The emergency meeting happened only 3 hours after the humans had finished their impossible rescue. The large round room on the Harmony's edge was full of alien representatives from 12 different species, all talking at once in their various languages. The translation computers worked hard to keep up with all the excited voices. Commander Veltar stood at the center of the room, trying to keep everyone calm. His skin kept changing from blue to gray to purple as he listened to all the different opinions about what they had just witnessed. "Order, please," Veltar called out, raising his forearms. "Dr. Vextella has prepared a full analysis of the human rescue operation. Let her speak." Dr. Vextella was the ship's expert on how different alien minds worked. She was a Zephyrian, which meant she looked like a tall, thin person, but with silver skin that sparkled when she moved. She had spent her whole life studying why different species behaved the way they did, but she had never seen anything like what the humans had done. "The facts are simple but disturbing," Dr. Vextella began, activating a holographic display that showed the human ship Defiant Hope. The humans succeeded in their rescue mission. They saved all 47 survivors from the Kalani transport vessel and brought them to safety. Their own ship suffered severe damage, but they never stopped until every life was secured. Ambassador Rethek from the Salvani delegation raised one of his tentacles. His purple skin was bright white, which meant he was very confused and worried. This behavior makes no sense according to any known survival psychology. No rational species would risk complete extinction to save unknown beings from another species. "Maybe they are just stupid," suggested Counselor Dekaran from the Vorthok Confederation. He was a large, rocky creature who always spoke very directly. "Perhaps humans have not evolved proper fear responses. Maybe their brains cannot calculate danger correctly." Dr. Vextella touched her control panel, and the holographic display showed brain scans that had been taken of the human crew during the rescue. The scans showed electrical activity in different colors, creating a map of how the human brain worked under extreme stress. "I thought the same thing at first," Dr. Vextella admitted. "But look at these neural readings we collected during the rescue operation." The humans' stress responses were completely normal. Captain Park's brain activity showed all the classic signs of someone who fully understood the danger they were facing. The brain scans showed bright red and yellow patterns that indicated high levels of stress chemicals and fear responses. But there was something else, something that made all the aliens in the room lean forward to look more closely. Their adrenaline levels were extremely high, Dr. Vextella continued. Their heart rates increased dramatically. Their awareness was heightened to maximum levels. These are all signs that they knew exactly how dangerous their situation was. They were not stupid or confused. They understood the risk perfectly. The room became very quiet. Every species in the Galactic Council had the same basic response to extreme danger. Run away, hide, protect yourself first. It was the most fundamental law of survival that had guided evolution for millions of years. But if they understood the danger, asked Ambassador Zethki from the ancient Corvin species, why did they fly directly into it? What possible evolutionary advantage could such behavior provide? Dr. Vextela manipulated the display to show comparative brain scans from other species facing similar dangerous situations. Every other species showed the same pattern. When faced with deadly threats, their brains activated escape and self-preservation responses. I have developed a theory, Dr. Vextela said slowly. What if humans have evolved a completely different survival strategy? What if their brains are programmed to move toward danger instead of away from it? The suggestion caused an immediate uproar in the council chamber. Aliens began talking loudly in their own languages, with the translation computers struggling to keep up. Several representatives stood up and began gesturing wildly with their arms, tentacles, or other appendages. That's impossible, declared Counselor Dikarin. No species can survive by seeking out danger. It goes against every principle of natural selection. Unless, Dr. Vextela said, raising her voice to be heard over the noise, their survival strategy is not based on individual survival, but on something else entirely. She activated another display that showed the rescue operation from a different angle. This time, the hologram focused not on the human ship, but on the 47 aliens they had saved. The rescued beings were now safe aboard the Harmony's Edge, receiving medical treatment and recovering from their ordeal. Consider this, Dr. Vextela continued. Every species we know focuses on preserving their own lives first. But what if humans have evolved to preserve other lives first, even at the cost of their own survival? What if their primary survival instinct is to save others? Ambassador Rethek's skin turned deep purple, which was the Salvani expression of profound unease. You're suggesting they have evolved to be suicidal? No, Dr. Vextela replied firmly. I'm suggesting they have evolved to be something we have never encountered before. Something that might be the opposite of suicidal. The room fell silent. Again, as the aliens tried to understand what she meant. I propose we establish long-term observation protocols for human colonies and ships, Dr. Vex_Thala concluded. We need to determine if this was an isolated incident or if this behavior represents a species-wide characteristic. If humans consistently risk their own lives to save others, then we are dealing with a completely new type of intelligent life. The Council voted unanimously to begin secret observations of human activities across the galaxy. They had to know if they had discovered a species that had evolved beyond self-preservation. 6 months later, Dr. Vextela stood in front of the same council room, but this time her silver skin was dim with worry. The holographic displays around her showed dozens of video recordings from 17 different human colonies, spread across the galaxy. What they had discovered was far more disturbing than anyone had expected. The evidence is overwhelming, Dr. Vex_Thala began, her voice heavy with concern. This is not an isolated behavior. What we witnessed with Captain Park was just one example of a pattern that appears on every human world we have observed. She activated the first recording, which showed a human colony, called New Sol, during a massive earthquake. The ground was shaking violently, and tall buildings were falling down, like children's toys. Normal evacuation procedures would have saved most of the population, but the humans were doing something completely different. Colony 7 Alpha experienced a magnitude 9 seismic event 3 months ago, Dr. Vextela explained. Standard safety protocols would have resulted in 87% survival rates. But we documented over 1,000 individual cases. of humans voluntarily entering structurally damaged buildings to rescue trapped people. The recording showed a human man named Kim running toward a medical building that was already tilting dangerously to one side. Pieces of concrete were falling from the upper floors, and anyone with basic survival instincts would have run in the opposite direction. But Kim ran straight into the building. The aliens in the council room watched in silence as Kim emerged, carrying a small injured child. He handed the child to other humans who were organizing the evacuation, then turned around and ran back into the same building. This time he came out supporting an elderly woman who could barely walk. He went back a third time, Dr. Vexella said quietly. The building collapsed while he was inside. We found his body protecting another survivor in the rubble. Ambassador Rethek S. purple skin turned pale. One individual's heroic sacrifice might be explained by temporary insanity or extreme emotional attachment. But you said there were over 1,000 similar cases, correct? And that was just during one emergency on one colony. Dr. Vextila switched to another recording, this one showing a human settlement during a violent storm. The sky was dark. Red and lightning was striking the ground constantly. This is Colony 12 Beta, during thermal storm season. The radiation levels were deadly to most life forms. The new recording showed a human woman named Lee climbing into a small aircraft. The storm around her was so intense that the air itself seemed to be glowing with dangerous energy. Any rational pilot would have waited for the storm to pass, but Lee was taking off directly into the worst part of the weather. Pilot Lee flew directly into Category 5 radiation winds to deliver medical supplies to an isolated research station. Dr. Vextila continued. Her aircraft was only rated to survive Category 2 radiation levels. She knew it would probably kill her. The recording showed Lee's ship struggling through the deadly storm, its hull beginning to glow bright red from the intense radiation. When she finally reached the research station and landed, she was barely conscious. She managed to transfer the medical supplies before collapsing. The radiation poisoning killed her within hours, but the 43 researchers at the station survived because of the medicine she had delivered. Counselor the Quran shifted his massive rocky body uncomfortably. These could still be exceptional individuals. Perhaps humans have a small percentage of mentally unstable members who the pattern extends to their military operations. Dr. Vextella interrupted, activating a third display. This recording was from space, showing a battle near the edge of the galaxy. During the Outer Rim conflicts, we observed an entire human battle group charging into a vastly superior enemy formation. The space battle looked hopeless from the beginning. 12 human ships were facing more than 100 enemy vessels. Any logical military strategy would have involved retreat, or at least trying to find better tactical positions. But the human ships were flying straight toward the enemy fleet. The human battle group was commanded by Admiral Cho, Dr. Vextella explained. They were not trying to win the battle. They were trying to buy time for civilian evacuation ships to escape. The recording showed the human ships maintaining their attack formation even as enemy weapons tore through their hulls. Ship after ship was destroyed, but the survivors kept fighting. They held their position for exactly 18 minutes before the last human vessel was destroyed. 18 minutes, Dr. Vextella repeated. That was exactly how long the civilian transports needed to reach safe jump coordinates. 200,000 civilians escaped because Admiral Cho and his crews chose to die. The council room was completely silent. Every alien representative was trying to understand what they were seeing, but it went against everything they had learned about intelligence and survival. This is not random self-destructive behavior, Dr. Vextella concluded. Every sacrifice serves a specific purpose, saving others at the cost of themselves. Kim died saving people from the earthquake. Lee died delivering medicine to save researchers. Admiral Cho died so that civilians could escape. Ambassador Zechki, the oldest member of the council, spoke in a voice that trembled with age and confusion. In 4 million years of galactic civilization, we have never encountered a species that consistently chooses death over self-preservation. This challenges our most basic understanding of how intelligence evolves. The pattern is universal across human settlements, Dr. Vexthala said. We have documented similar behavior on every human world we have observed. They are not just willing to die for others, they seem to be programmed to do it. The implications were terrifying and fascinating. Humanity appeared to be a species that had evolved beyond the most fundamental law of life, survive at any cost. Instead, they had evolved something completely new, survive others at any cost. The alarm woke everyone on the Harmony's edge during the quiet night period, when most of the crew was sleeping. Commander Veltar rushed to the bridge, his forearms moving quickly as he pulled on his uniform. The emergency lights were flashing red, which meant something very dangerous was happening nearby. Report, Veltar ordered as he reached his command station. His skin was already turning dark gray with worry before he even heard the bad news. Dr. Cathara was at her science station, her tentacles moving frantically over the control panels. Commander, we're receiving distress signals from Kepler Research Station. Their artificial star is failing catastrophically. The stellar cascade is expanding much faster than their computers predicted. Veltar felt his skin turn almost black with fear. Kepler Research Station was one of the largest installations in this part of the galaxy, home to over 3 million people from 47 different species. It was built around an artificial star that provided power and heat to the massive complex. But artificial stars were dangerous. When they failed completely. How long until total collapse? Veltar asked. At current expansion rate, the cascade will consume the entire station in 36 minutes. Dr. Cathara replied. All evacuation ships need to be at minimum safe distance within that time, or they will be destroyed along with the station. The main viewing screen showed the evacuation already beginning. Hundreds of ships from dozens of different species were launching from Kepler Station, each following the careful evacuation plans that had been prepared for exactly this type of emergency. The colony ships were using their advanced computers to calculate the most efficient escape routes. The Nexari vessels were loading passengers according to strict survival probability charts. The Salvani were organizing their evacuation ships by mathematical formulas that would save the maximum number of lives. Everything was proceeding exactly as it should, according to 3 million years of galactic emergency procedures. Every species was doing what evolution had taught them to do. Run away from danger as quickly and efficiently as possible. But then Dr. Vexthala noticed something that made her silver skin grow bright with alarm. Commander, look at the human ships. They're moving in the wrong direction. On the tactical display, 12 human vessels were clearly visible among the hundreds of evacuation ships. But while every other ship was flying away from Kepler Station, as fast as possible, the human ships were turning around and flying back toward the expanding stellar cascade. That makes no sense, Commander Veltar said, his skin cycling through colors of confusion. Are their navigation systems damaged? The answer came through the communication system in a calm, clear voice. This is Captain Beak of the Human Heavy Cruiser, Unbroken Dawn, to all human vessels in the area. The cascade is expanding 18% faster than predicted. Civilian evacuation ships need exactly 18 more minutes to reach minimum safe distance. We're going to buy them that time. Ambassador Hicheki, who had been awakened by the emergency, arrived on the bridge just in time to hear the transmission. His purple skin immediately turned white with shock. Buy time? How can they possibly buy time against a stellar cascade? You cannot negotiate with a collapsing star. Dr. Vexthala was studying her instruments, trying to understand what the humans were planning. Commander, they're not trying to stop the cascade. They're heading for the station's power core. I think they're going to manually stabilize the containment fields from the inside. The idea was so insane that every alien on the bridge just stared at her. The containment fields around Kepler Station's artificial star were failing because of radiation damage and system overloads. Getting close enough to repair them manually would mean flying directly into radiation levels that would kill any living creature within minutes. That's suicide, Veltar whispered. The radiation exposure alone would destroy their ships before they could accomplish anything. But the human ships kept flying toward the deadly energy storm surrounding Kepler Station. The Unbroken Dawn led the formation, followed by 11 other vessels of various sizes. Their hulls were already beginning to glow from radiation exposure as they approached the Cascade Zone. Captain Beak's voice came through the communication system again, now with more static interference, as the radiation affected the transmission. Equipment, all evacuation ships. This is Unbroken Dawn. We are beginning manual containment procedures. Continue your evacuation at maximum speed. Do not attempt to assist us. On the viewing screen, the aliens watched something they had never seen before. The human ships spread out around the failing artificial star and began using their own energy systems to reinforce the collapsing containment fields. They were essentially using their ships as giant batteries, pouring their power into the station's failing systems. One by one, the human vessels began to suffer catastrophic damage. The radiation was eating through their hulls like acid. Their engines were overloading from the massive energy transfer. But they maintained their positions, holding the containment field stable, even as their ships fell apart around them. Someone has to hold the line. Captain Beak's voice crackled through the increasing interference. Tell our families we chose this. For exactly 18 minutes, the 12 human ships held their positions around the collapsing artificial star. Their sacrifice bought the exact amount of time needed for the last evacuation ships to reach safety. When the Unbroken Dawn finally suffered complete hull failure, Captain Beak was still at his station, still maintaining the containment field that kept 3 million lives safe. The stellar cascade was contained. Kepler Station survived. Every single evacuation ship reached minimum safe distance, but all 12 human ships and their 4,847 crew members were gone, consumed by the very disaster they had chosen to fight instead of flee. The galaxy watched, and finally understood what they were witnessing, a species that would rather burn than let others die. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen anything like this memorial service. Representatives from every known species in the galaxy filled the enormous chamber. Thousands of different life forms united in silence to honor the human crews who had died at Kepler Station. The walls displayed images of the 12 ships and the 4,847 humans who had chosen to sacrifice themselves so that others might live. Ambassador Zethki stood at the central speaking platform, his ancient form moving slowly but with great dignity. He was over 800 years old, one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy, and had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. His species, the Vorthok, had been exploring space when most other races were still learning to make fire. If anyone could explain what humanity meant to the galaxy, it was him. My fellow beings, Zethki began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber, thanks to the advanced sound systems. For 3 million years, every species in this galaxy has evolved according to the same fundamental law of survival. When faced with fire, we run away. When threatened with destruction, we preserve ourselves above all else. This is not cowardice. This is intelligence. This is sanity. This is how we have all survived to reach the stars. The chamber remained completely silent. Even the youngest representatives, who normally fidgeted during long speeches, sat perfectly still as they listened to the old ambassador's words. But we have discovered something that challenges everything we believed about intelligence and survival, Zethki continued. We have found a species that does not follow this ancient law. Humanity does not run from the fire despite the terrible odds. They run into the fire because someone must. On the memorial walls, new images appeared. Kim running into the collapsing building to save strangers. Lee flying into the radiation storm to deliver medicine. Admiral Cho holding his battle line so civilians could escape. Captain Beak and his crew maintaining the containment fields as their ships burned around them. At first we thought they were defective, Zethke admitted. We believed their brains were damaged, that they could not properly calculate risk and danger. We were wrong. Their brains work perfectly. They understand danger better than most of us. They simply choose to face it anyway. Ambassador Rethek sat in the front row, his purple skin a deep shade of blue that indicated deep thought. For months, he had struggled to understand human behavior. Now, listening to Zethke's words, he was beginning to see the bigger picture. We thought they were suicidal, Zethke continued. We believed they had evolved some terrible flaw that compelled them toward self-destruction. We were wrong about that too. They are not trying to destroy themselves. They are trying to preserve something more important than their individual lives. Dr. Vextella, sitting with the scientific delegation, felt her silver skin brighten with understanding. After months of studying human behavior, she was finally beginning to comprehend what made them different from every other species in the galaxy. While evolution taught every other species that survival means avoiding the fire, Zethke explained, humanity learned that sometimes survival means becoming the firebreak. They learned that someone must stand between the darkness and the light, knowing they might not return, but also knowing that others will live because they stood firm. The ancient ambassador paused, letting his words sink in. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species were beginning to understand the true significance of what they had witnessed. We have spent months trying to understand why humans behave this way, Zethke said. We analyzed their brains, studied their psychology, examined their evolutionary history. But we were asking the wrong question. The question is not why they do it. The question is what happens to the galaxy if they stop. Commander Veltar, sitting with the military representatives, felt his skin cycle through several colors as he considered the implications. Without the human crews at Kepler Station, 3 million beings would have died. Without Admiral Cho's sacrifice, 200,000 civilians would have been killed. Without humans willing to run toward danger, how many others would have perished? For 3 million years, we have built our civilization on the principle of rational self-preservation, Zethke continued. We have created a galaxy where everyone looks after themselves first. It has served us well, but it has also created a fundamental weakness. When faced with disasters too large for any individual to survive, we all run away. We save ourselves and accept that others must be sacrificed. The chamber was so quiet that the soft humming of the life support systems seemed loud. But humans do not accept that others must die, Zethke said, his voice growing stronger. When everyone else runs away, they run forward. When everyone else calculates the odds and chooses safety, they calculate the odds and choose sacrifice. They have become something we never expected to find. The guardians who stand watch while others sleep. The old ambassador straightened his ancient frame and spoke the words that would define humanity's place in galactic civilization forever. Today, we established the Firekeeper Protocol, acknowledging humanity's unique role as the species willing to sacrifice itself for the survival of others. We thought they were evolutionarily defective. We were wrong. They are evolutionarily necessary. From that day forward, human ships would patrol the dangerous edges of galactic civilization, ready to stand between the darkness and the light. The galaxy finally understood that its greatest strength was not its oldest, wisest, or most advanced species. It was the one species willing to run into the fire when everyone else ran away.